So I'm with Dr. Casada, and we're talking a little bit about the things you do in your office and the children that you see. And are there things that you see on a daily basis that are in any way an issue or concerning to you?
Um, Over the last few years, I feel like I've been seeing more and more mental health concerns, depression, um, thoughts of self harm, and also definitely anxiety. And anxiety is probably the biggest one that I feel like I've been seeing recently. And I've been a pediatrician working on my own for 14 years, and I feel like in the last few years it's definitely gotten worse.
In what way would you say it's gotten worse?
I feel like I'm seeing a lot more of it.
Okay.
And
At the same age of children, or?
I feel like I'm seeing it at a younger age.
Ah,
And I feel like I'm seeing more of it and more debilitating.
really? So it's kind of heavier, quicker? Okay. And how do you respond when you come into these
Well,
scenarios?
I actually ask about it now.
Okay.
I had been trained to ask teenagers
Mm-hmm.
about pressures, about bullying, and I have, on my own, because of the questions I get and the concerns I get, I've started asking pretty much at every well visit to the child and to the parent, do you have concerns about anxiety or depression? And I start asking 4, 5, 6, depending on what's going on with the conversation.
Really?
And on a daily basis, I'm getting a yes concern, particularly for anxiety.
Is that right? Now, can you give me a good understanding of what exactly is anxiety?
So anxiety for me is excessive worry.
Excessive worry.
Worry is normal. If I didn't worry, I wouldn't study for a test. If I didn't worry, as an adult, I wouldn't pay my taxes. I wouldn't go to sleep in the evening because I wouldn't be worried about what would happen the next day. But what I'm seeing with a lot of my patients is they are so worried about what might happen, what could happen, that they're not able to enjoy what they're doing. And for a lot of them, they are missing doing things that they would otherwise enjoy.
Is that right? So anxiety is actually keeping them from doing more and holding them back?
Yes.
How does this unravel? So if you see a patient by chance and you see they are having the startings of anxiety and you see that their anxiety grows, how do you make it go backwards, or how do you see this unravel? Good thought, huh?
Yeah.
Yeah, because it could go different ways, I'm sure. But
I mean, I think sometimes just making sure that the parents and the child are both on this, they both hear it, that they're both in the same place and they know that that's a concern. Unfortunately, my job as a general pediatrician is probably more to get them in with a specialist than my doing the treatment itself. But I do try to encourage families to make sure their child's getting enough sleep.
Right.
Most patients I see get significantly less sleep than they're supposed to, and that impacts everything. It impacts mood, it impacts ability to focus, and it definitely impacts worry.
Wow.
I try to also encourage that they're eating breakfast. Many of my middle schoolers and high schoolers don't eat breakfast.
Really?
If they do, they grab a breakfast bar on the way out the door that has no protein. So it's less sustaining.
Sure.
So those are some of the basic things that I try and make sure that they're doing. I try to make sure that the family is communicating with teachers.
Right.
And find out what's really going on in the classroom. And then referring parents often to a book or two of what they can read to better understand their child.
Sure.
I do rely on school counselors a lot.
Okay.
And they're already overwhelmed.
I imagine they are.
And then local counselors, psychologists, psychiatrists, but the problem is that's, for a lot of families, time and money. They don't have in particular money.
Exactly.
and a lot of the counselors in town, particularly the very good ones, are so busy that they're not taking new patients.
Really?
So even if I identify the problem in class, in the appointment,
Uh-huh.
I don't always have a great place to send people.
Okay, well, let's talk about that next,
Mhm.
okay? You are seeing some things that are successful, because some people navigate this better than others. What's one of the things that you see in someone who navigates this more successfully? If there's one quality that makes a difference, what would it be?
I'd probably say communication.
Communication. So communicating with your communication that there's an issue. So I've always heard if you can recognize a problem, you can solve it.
Mhm.
So once you've recognized it, if you're able to get the parent and the child agreeing that there's an issue, is
Although
that
they don't always.
and they don't because they're coming from different perspectives, right?
But something that we've talked a lot about is trying to make sure that when families are together, they are actually interacting and not in front of screens at that time.
Screens. So you're saying the screens can play some type of role?
I wonder if a lot of the increase in anxiety that I'm seeing in my middle schoolers and my high schoolers is very much screen based, and even with some of my younger children.
I see.
What I mean by that is I feel that preteens and teens are trying to figure out where they fit in the world, and they have to do that obviously all day in class with their peers and activities, but now they also need to figure out what other people think of them and are saying online. And that is something that follows them home 24 hours a day.
So you can't get away from it.
And I ask teenagers, where's your phone? And very often I'm hearing, well, it's charging next to my bed. And when I ask specifics, so how often do you get a text at night? Well, only if I get one, I respond. Okay, well, how often do you get one?
Mm-hmm.
And I'm very often finding that there's messages going on throughout the night.
Right.
So not only is there not good sleep and broken up sleep, which is going to impact mood and behavior the next day and the following day, but they're sort of worrying in that free downtime about what other people are thinking or saying.
It makes sense, but it's scary to me. I was bullied a lot growing up because we moved so many times, but I learned that karate was an answer for me in solving those individual conflicts.
Mm-hmm.
But what you're telling me, the rules have changed. That now a bully scenario can go viral, and you can feel like the whole world is against you. And I don't know exactly how to respond to that right now. That's a lot to sink in, you know. So getting kind of attached to these screens kind of robs us a little bit of our life, doesn't it?
It seems that if your friends are on social media and they've created a persona for themselves on social media, and then you want to fit in, that's something that you need to figure out how you're going to fit in even when you're home in your downtime. And when I was young, if I was bullied, and I was, when I left school, I was safe. It couldn't touch me anymore. Yes, I worried about it, but it wasn't continuing. And if
you could
somebody
turn it off.
Yes, if somebody was to bully me at that time, the only way they could would be if something else had happened and I heard from a friend, and that would worry me. But if somebody called me on a landline, which my mom answered, and then would scream, and that would require work in getting past my mom.
Yeah.
So I was safe, and I feel like that safeness is gone.
Yeah.
Because the internet is always there, social media is always there, and somebody can post something at 8 o'clock at night and spread it, and you're doing something else and don't know, but the next morning the rest of the world knows, or the rest of your world knows, and you can't defend yourself because it's already gone,
You're right.
whether it's true or not.
You're right. Those are overwhelming odds. And while we have to find some solution, and we have to look for some type of way forward, I've always been told if you can measure it, you can manage it. So if we had 24 hours in a day, about what would a fair amount, if my child's 10 years old, what would be a fair amount of screen time?
The American Academy of Pediatrics, which is sort of the governing body for children's doctors, or the advisory body, they recommend no more than 2 hours a day
2 hours a
of
day.
combined screen time.
Okay.
I personally think that's a lot.
Do you?
But I guess the definition of what is screen time
Is broad.
You know, right.
Yes.
So for me, that would be going home and doing your homework on the internet, plus your cell phone, plus watching a show.
Sure.
But the current information that I'm hearing from people who've studied this is that the average preteen and teenager is getting at least 4 hours of screen time a day.
Wow, that's a lot. I mean, in a week, you're 28 hours, right? So you've lost a day plus of your life to screens at the end of a week. When computers first started becoming popular, one of our parents had a very good strategy. They required their children to read an hour to get a screen hour. And in doing that, she found they actually liked reading more than screen time. And that was successful for her. But I would imagine some type of system to where you manage your screen time would be the first step to trying to reduce some anxiety. Because if it's just wide open and you continue to allow it to run wild, you're just kind of pouring gasoline.
The problem for me, I guess with that, it makes sense to me, but particularly online games have been written by very smart people and by people who are studying how the brain works and are feeding into that in a way that the games are an addiction.
Wow.
And so even if the child's not on the game, they're so worried about playing the game that it will potentially overwhelm the rest of the day for that little bit of time that they are or aren't on the screen.
I hear what you're saying, but in the back of my mind, I'm hearing something bigger. I'm hearing that we're actively cultivating an addictive personality.
Yes.
And we're doing it through well-intentioned people, but they're just utilizing entertainment in a way that creates that addictiveness. And I'm sure that has some negative effects.
I definitely think behavior in my house with my 2 children is calmer when there's less screen time.
Well, let's take a break on that moment, because that's worth thinking about. I'm going to end right there for just a minute, okay? And then we'll do like a 1-minute recap. That was a pretty cool conversation. It was